Let's review the Fluance RT85. This review is long overdue, and you're going to see why. Buying a new turntable for me was not the easiest thing to do. I had never really dived deep into the mechanics of what a good turntable was. I just thought spend more money equals get better sound. But in reality, that is not the case at all. And in regards to the Fluance RT85, that could not be farther from the truth. The Fluance line of turntables are really nice and stand out, in my opinion, in the world of hi-fi and turntables in that they are really solid and very affordable. We're going to be talking about the Fluance RT85 since that's what I have, but we also will go over the lower models and really dive into how this is almost like an ecosystem, since you can really start out with one of the entry-level models at a lower price and then expand from there, which is another great thing about this kind of setup. Full disclosure here, this is my personal table that I bought, and Fluance did not reach out to me to make this video in any way. I've actually reached out to Fluance a couple times about making videos, and they've completely ignored me. So if they see this, hopefully that could change. This is a full honest review, and spoiler alert, this is not my daily driver turntable anymore, and we'll get into why, but I still do own it, and I still do highly, highly recommend it. And so let's get into why and the full review on this turntable. Just another disclaimer here. Some of this was filmed a really long time ago when I bought this turntable, so you're gonna see some older footage here, and I'm just now getting to this because I really suck at getting stuff out. So here you go. I actually ordered my RT85 from Amazon, and I have links below if you would like to order one as well, and those are affiliate links and they do help out the channel, so I get like a small portion of your sale on Amazon, so that's really all it is. There's no actual affiliation going on here at all with Fluance, I promise you that. Fluance is a Canadian company, and you can order from them directly on their website, but I'm pretty sure even if you order from them on their website, you're actually getting the order sent to you from Amazon. And I think also when I got this from Amazon, I'm actually getting it from Fluance at that point. So they're kind of like a seller on Amazon in that case, which is really good because you can get the Prime and you can also get it like next day shipping, which is what I got. I ordered it and it showed up the very next day. I also actually got mine as a refurbished item, so it was much cheaper than you could get for the list price. And I also would highly, highly recommend that. If you can find this used or at a refurbished price or anywhere even below the manufacturer retail price, you are getting an absolute steal for this turntable. The packaging for this was very good, and I was actually very curious about that to see how it would be packed, since when I got this turntable, I had never actually bought a turntable brand new before or had one shipped to me in the mail. The dust cover is separately wrapped along with the plinth, which is also packed in a really sturdy styrofoam, and each component comes individually wrapped, and you get the RCA cables, the ground cable, each clip for the dust cover, and then this is the belt for the motor casing. The acrylic platter was packaged separately along with the belt for the table, and the tone arm weight is packed separately as well. The cartridge was packed in styrofoam and wrapped separately, so it's all safely arriving to you. And this is the Ortofon 2M Blue Cartridge, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and some other Ortofon cartridges that I've used with this turntable and what I recommend with this turntable. They claim that the cartridge is aligned from the factory, and maybe because mine was a refurbished item, this was not the case, but it was definitely not aligned at all, so I did have to align mine myself. They send along a pair of gloves as well, which you can use to handle the turntable, which is actually very nice, and I highly recommend using them because the fingerprints on this thing are a massacre, as you will see with this piano black. If you get it in the walnut, it's not so much fingerprinting, but I think the walnut even still has like a shiny veneer. I think the white would probably be the best way to go if you absolutely don't want to see fingerprints at all. Finally, also in the box, you get a cool catalog to show what you could look like while using their stuff, as well as the manual. Setting up this turntable is extremely easy. I always recommend setting up all of your connections and components for a turntable before dialing in any of the settings. Like, don't bother leveling the turntable first and then start plugging everything in, because you're gonna probably need to level it again. So it's just gonna be a waste of time. It's pretty self-guiding for setup. You put down the plinth, you lay down the platter on the spindle, connect the belt. attach your counterweight to the tone arm, add on the pre-mounted cartridge and head shell, and you're ready to start dialing in all of the settings. Leveling this turntable is very easy. It has a 3-foot design on the bottom, and they're actually like squishy feet as well, so you can easily just kind of push down on whatever side of the turntable to fine-tune your leveling. They can also be turned to level them as well to get major adjustments. I think the 3-foot design is to allow for less contact with the table to the surface that you're putting it on. Next, balancing the tone arm on this is very easy. Be sure before you're starting to zero out the tone arm that you set the anti-skate to 0, so this way the tone arm won't sway back and forth while you're trying to set it. First, you need to take off the cartridge cover and then zero out the gimbal by moving the weight back and forth until it floats by itself. Then zero out the weight scale by moving the dial to 0. You've now zeroed out the tone arm at this point. For the Ortofon 2M Blue, it requires a tracking force of 1.6 grams, so you move the tracking force of the weight to 1.6. It's best to have a digital scale to dial this in perfectly and double check it, but you do not need one, which is why you have this like balancing setup on the gimbal. They are cheap enough to get though, so I do highly recommend them. After you've set the tracking force for the cartridge, be sure to set the anti-skate to the exact same weight that you set your tracking force to. Now you're going to need to align the cartridge, and at this point you're going to need a tool or at least a chart or something for this. You can print this chart or you can buy one of these tools, and I'll have a link for these in the description below. Again, another Amazon affiliate link. Basically, you're just adjusting the cartridge to be aligned to each of the points that are designed here. And we talked about this more in depth in a previous video. Just be careful while doing this. Don't worry about using the lever to lower the cartridge down. It's a diamond stylus and it's meant to be spinning on vinyl, but just be careful with it. Don't slam it down. It's easy to make the adjustments with the 2 screws on the Ortofon head shell. And once you do that, you should not need to do this again unless you like change head shells or if you like really bang it or move it or some point. Pretty much once you align your cartridge, you're pretty much good to go. How does this perform? First off, you do have the option here for 35 and 45 RPM on a knob, so no need to switch the belt, which is very good. This is a semi-automatic turntable, meaning that it will start to spin when you move the tone arm over into position. So there is no auto lift for it. It's not a fully automatic turntable, and there's no auto button or anything like that. You do need to move the tone arm into position, but the platter does start moving once you do that. And then you have to lower the tone arm manually so you can enjoy your sweet jams. Now, this is semi-auto, like I said, but Fluance does give the option for a 30-second stop when the record finishes its side. This is nice, and it can save your cartridge if you've completely forgotten it, but I do find that it's actually a little bit too long. The 30 seconds, it's still spinning for 30 seconds on your stylus there, so I don't like that. So I will just wait till the record's done. I don't really trust it, but it is nice. At the back of the turntable, you can turn it on and off if you want to. The dust cover for this is very nice, and what I do like too is that there's no logo on it, which is very slick looking. It is tinted as well, and the hinges are very well designed. It's a very easy, pop up, but they also pop right off of the back of the turntable very easily. So if you want to use it completely without the dust cover, which I highly recommend, it's easy to just completely take it off. If you do want to use it with the dust cover, you should close the dust cover. So they recommend either keeping it completely closed or completely taking it off. Don't have it half open while you're listening to your records. The speed of this table is very accurate. I just use an app from the App Store, put my phone on it, and then it measures while it's rolling around, and it's always giving me a solid measurement. I used this turntable for about almost 2 years before I stopped using it every day, and I still have the same original belt on it, and it still works fine, and the speed is still great with it. What I like about the feel of this turntable is I was coming from a Fisher MT6330 from the 70s. That was my first and only turntable that I ever owned for years, and this seemed like a good modern version upgrade of that. I would say that Fluance was almost going for that with the feel of a vintage table, but with a lot of modern aesthetics. This is much nicer than that table. It's got a much heavier plinth, and the plinth is wood. It is that MDF board, but versus that old table, that table had like a plastic plinth. That table was a semi-automatic turntable as well, but it was also a direct drive turntable. So I was also going for something a little bit more stripped down with a belt drive to try to get some like less noise and less rumble. And this provides a very silent sound with your records, no rumble at all. And I do feel that the feet on this very much help with that. And when I was using it in the main floor of my house, it's on a hardwood floor, and I was using it on a shelf with records, as you've seen in many past videos, and it's always performed very solid. I've never really heard any footsteps or anything like that as I'm walking around the turntable. I've never had to be like real ginger with it, which I did have to with the old Fisher MT6330 until I got some new feet for it. But even when I got those new feet, it still wasn't enough. It just wasn't a good enough suspension system like these feet are for this. But like I said, if you're coming from an old vintage style turntable like that Fisher, this is a very good upgrade from that because it feels very much like that, and it has that vibe of an older style turntable, especially if you get the walnut finish. The walnut finish very much looks like an older style turntable. This does not have a built-in phono stage, so you will need to get a separate phono stage for this. I have been using the iFi Zen phono stage with this, and it is phenomenal. And again, a great affordable price. iFi also has another great affordable phono stage, the iFi Zen Air Phono, and that one is even cheaper, but also has a lot of the same sound characteristics of the Zen phono stage. I think it just doesn't have the balanced output with it. In either of those cases, this sounds amazing with them. I'm sure Fluance's main phono stage would also sound very good with this as well. I've also tried this out with the U-Turn Pluto 2 phono stage, and it also sounds very good with that as well. The Ortofon 2 cartridge performs amazing on this thing, and it has a very detailed and dynamic sound, and I really like that. I really like a very like neutral sound. I listen a lot to monitor setups and like in studio setup things, so I'm always going for like a very neutral sound. I don't want a lot of color in my cartridges, and the Ortofon 2M Blue provides a lot of high-end detail without providing, you know, like a lot of like artificial bass and things like that. Also, this turntable sounds great with the Ortofon 2M Bronze. I was using that for a while with this turntable because they both have the same vertical tracking angle, the blue and the bronze. This is a locked-in vertical tracking angle, so you can't adjust the back end and the height of the tone arm, so you are locked in with what this is set for, which this is set for a 20-degree vertical tracking angle. So basically any cartridges that would have a 20-degree VTA would fit into this. One good thing to note, the Fluance RT85N, which has the Nagaoka cartridge, is actually a little bit different of a base height of the tone arm. So you might want to consider that if you want to consider getting tone arms of that height. This is not just the ability to go out and buy a Fluance and then swap over to the Nagaoka. Although I will say, I do think that these cartridges in this price range, like in this range of cartridges, the vertical tracking angle isn't going to really affect things that much with an Ortofon 2M Blue or even the 2M Bronze for that matter. I also consulted with Ortofon about using this with the 2M Bronze, and they even said that using this would be a solid option. One of the reasons why Fluance doesn't offer the 2M Bronze in a stock configuration is because they do want to try to keep the price down for this table setup. Some people would argue that the Bronze is too much of a cartridge for this table. I would not listen to those people. If you're using this as like a second turntable setup in your house like I am, I've actually put the 2M Blue back onto it and I'm just using it with that, and it is fantastic. So I would say if you had like a set of nice powered speakers, or you know, like the Fluance, if you just went with a full Fluance setup with their powered speakers and this, you're good to go. What's really interesting with the Fluance range of turntables is they are kind of like an ecosystem. You could essentially upgrade from the RT80 all the way up to the RT85 by changing out the platter and getting a different cartridge and things of that nature. Now, on the RT80 and the RT81, they do have a different feet setup. I think the RT81 Plus might go into the 3 feet setup, and then from the RT82 on, they all have the same plinth setup. So you could go back to the RT82, start out there, which is like $300, and then eventually change out the platter to this acrylic platter. I would highly recommend upgrading to an acrylic platter, and that was actually one of the things that made me want to get this turntable. The acrylic platter is just fantastic. It has a very warm sound to it, and there's no need to use any type of a felt mat or anything like that, and I don't like using those mats. I think sometimes they can get dirty, and they can sometimes like put stuff stuff and dirt onto your records. So I like having this, and it's very clean. I can just wipe it off and just put another record right down on it directly. Plus, because it's acrylic like this, it has a very great look to it. You can shine light through it. You can kind of change up all the colors. I think they even make like an LED system for the Fluance. Fluance does not make that, but I think third parties make like an LED light system. You can just go and get like a very cheap pair of LED lights and put it on the bottom of this, or even just right behind your turntable, as I've done, and it shines right through, and it looks really awesome when you're playing your stuff. So it is cool to have a great aesthetic with your stuff. I mean, let's talk a little bit about aesthetics for this, because this does have a fantastic look to it. This is something that a lot of people are probably going to have in a main room of their house. A lot of people are going to need to bargain with a significant other to be able to get a turntable like this. When you present them with something like this that's in a sleek piano black or in the nice walnut finish that they either have the dark wood or the blonde wood. Any one of them look fantastic. And with the acrylic platter, it looks even more classy. And so this becomes more of like a furniture piece in your house rather than just having, just some DJ style looking turntable that, although sounds really good, is probably way more expensive also, and, it doesn't look as good in your house. Now, that's not to say that, looks are everything. They're definitely not. But when you're in this price range, which is awesome that you are getting amazing aesthetics for the price that you're paying. For all of the things that you need out of a turntable and the price range that this is in, this is an amazingly solid choice. If you want to go into super high grade cartridges and things like that, you might need to look into something that has more tone arm adjustments. However, you will be spending a lot more money on a turntable for that. This is currently the second unit in my house that I'm using while I'm cleaning records and things like that. So it's great that it is kind of a semi-automatic, and it sounds absolutely fantastic in this room, I will say that. If this is your first turntable, this might be your very well last turntable. And if this is something that you're upgrading from, like I did, an older Fisher's 1970s turntable, this is gonna feel a lot like that. It's also gonna feel 50 years newer, and it's gonna, perform 50 years newer as well. So this will be a solid performer for anyone that chooses to get one. I do highly recommend them. If you enjoyed this video, you might like some of these others on the channel as well, talking about turntable setups or great tools to get a turntable setup. I'm gonna go listen to some lowrider oldies on my Fluance RT85. I will see you on the next one.